Welcome to Meeples on Meeples, episode 51. I'm Adam.
Andrew.
Patrick.
And Brian.
Before we get into our game this week, we'd like to invite you over to YouTube where you can subscribe to our channel, see all of our recent videos, as well as our website, www.meeplesonmeeples.com, where we have all of our videos, some written reviews, component shots for the games we play, and some other random posts we put up there every once in a while. And finally, you can check us out over at Facebook, facebook.com/meeplesonmeeples, where again, we have a little bit of discussion about the games we play, some games that we don't play every once in a while, and a little interaction with the community.
Well, tonight's game of the week was Dungeons & Dragons Legend of Drizzt board game. And if you've ever played any of the Dungeons & Dragons board games, this is going to be very similar to you because they are designed to play with each other and to build upon each other. If you haven't played it before, this is a basic dungeon crawler game. And like the dungeon crawler, each of you will start off with a character from the Legend of Drizzt book series. And there are 5 characters that you usually can choose from, including Drizzt, Brunar, Battlehammer, Wolfgar, and a couple others. You always start on one tile. You'll get your character card. The character card basically tells you everything that you need to know. Your attack value, your armor class, your hit points, how many you can move. It also tells you what cards that you start off with. Each character has character cards that gives them powers throughout the game, or weapons or attacks, and that is all included on the item itself. On your turn, you can do one of three choice of actions: move and attack, attack and move, or move twice. And your goal is to kind of explore the dungeon, or in this case the caverns, and to basically end the scenario that you have chosen.
And the way you play it out is when you move to the edge of one of these squares, you draw another square from the pile, add it on, so you kind of build the map as you go.
And each time you reveal a new section of the cavern, you draw a monster to place on the cavern. The monster goes on next to your character card, and at the end of each of your turn, all the monsters that you have in front of you act at the end of your turn. So they're constantly interacting with the monsters, and the monsters do have an artificial intelligence that plays against you. You kill monsters off, you get a treasure card. If you don't reveal a map, or if you reveal a map section with a black triangle on it, you draw an encounter card, which is basically, or typically, a way to mess with your party.
It's usually an environmental effect.
Yeah. The monsters that you meet can immobilize you, they can poison you, and basically you're just trying to complete the scenario, get Drizzt's team, his adventuring team, to complete the scenario and win the game. That's about as basic as you can get, and this is really a very basic dungeon crawler game expansion.
Why don't we start with components like we normally do? I'll jump in for Brian here. Interlocking pieces. Come on.
they did something right. Interlocking pieces. The miniatures. What do you guys think of the miniatures?
They're very nice. If you are familiar with my personal favorite game, HeroScape, the same company reused some of the sculpts, especially the troll, for instance, is definitely a HeroScape character. But that's the kind of quality you're getting. They're not painted, unfortunately, but they are very nice sculpts.
Yeah, why aren't they painted yet?
I haven't gotten around to them.
We're gonna make a painting video.
Yeah, I've been painting my Anima Tactics and my Infinity characters right now, so I haven't gotten to this yet.
No video. Anyway.
No video. The tiles are really nice. They are single-sided, but you draw them at random, so you don't want them double-sided, so you don't know what's coming up next.
And there's a good number of them. I mean, how many are there total? Just this box.
I think 20-some in this box.
And you can play all the Dungeons games together.
You can play them all together. So each character card is a nice cardboard stock item. They're going to be durable.
Basically, that's your player mat, which I kind of like. It tells you all the necessary stats.
The main bad guys' player stats are double-sided, so there are a lot of different bad guy characters on here that are also in that cardboard.
If I can go to the player mats, I like them. They're kind of a pain as far as keeping track of things. I mean, your speed, your surge value, your armor class don't really change, but some of them have a lot of hit points, and it's kind of a pain. Wolfgar, for instance, has 12 hit points. Throwing on 12 of these little chits until you end up with 12 to find out.
Fives too.
Or the fives. It would be nice, in a game we didn't really like a lot, but Zpocalypse has kind of the dials on it. Something like that would have been a nice feature, just because you end up with a lot of little pieces on this tiny card.
There are a lot of chits with this game. As you can see, there's piles and piles of chits.
I was going to say, compared to most large games that are known for tons of components. I mean, when you have a minis game like this, a miniatures game, you have a lot of components. I actually thought they really dialed back the number of chits compared to most games.
I'm not saying it's too many.
Well, they did a good job of reining it in, I thought.
I'm not saying that there's too many, but there's still quite a bit here.
I would say it's manageable, but
one thing typically I complain about the mini card size. You know, we have a debate about that. Having the large cards can be a lot. At the end of the game, playing as Wolfgar in our last game, I had probably like 10 cards in front of me. I was taking up a good chunk of my side of the table because there's just so much in front of me to keep track of.
Monsters and treasure cards.
I don't know how you solve that problem, but it just felt like kind of the components
mini cards, which you hate. Yeah. Mini cards would do it.
But with these cards, they're very clean.
Yes.
There's not a lot of extra on them, which is great. You could make mini cards, and they would be just fine with these because they're not overly
There's a lot of wasted space on some of them.
They're very easy to read, though. The layout, the graphic design is good.
Yeah, exactly. If you made this into a mini card, it would be really easy to read. The reason I don't like a lot of mini cards is because of that reason. They make it too busy.
They put like 3 paragraphs of text on there.
I also like the fact that each of these cards has the actual character figurine on it, so it's really quick to look at the game board.
Yeah, whether it's the good guy or the enemies, the monsters.
The other thing I like about the game board is, unlike other dungeon crawler games, they're very clean. The tiles are very clean. The symbols are very clear. Yeah. They have names on them, so if it says in your scenario, look for the dwarven statue, it actually says dwarven statue. It doesn't have like a little number next to them. You can see what all the symbols mean. We kind of dogged on the Apocalypse because the board was pretty, but there were so many little symbols that you couldn't see. It was insane. This one, it's clean cut.
It's got a good art style for what it is. It is kind of drab because it gets very gray.
I was just gonna say the color is very plain, but you are in the caverns or ruins almost in all of the scenarios.
And you have Wolverine. This guy looks just like Wolverine.
He does look like Wolverine, actually.
A little bit.
Well, the other thing that's neat about this is it can be played with the other items. If you are other games in this series, if you are a Dungeons and Dragons player, you can actually use these tile maps and create pre-designed caverns and things like that. There's rules in there on how to play pre-designed caverns, so you don't reveal them one at a time. It's basically called an adventurer's mode. So there's a lot of different flavor to this that you could build upon.
Should we move into our next category then?
Going to strategy, I think we covered components pretty well there. What did you guys find as a good strategy?
Don't ever pair up with Ian.
That's true.
Just push
you ever have a chance to play with him?
If you ever want to see a guy roll on a 20-sided dice more ones than is statistically possible,
I'm pretty sure 5 this last game.
You want to be paired up with Ian. We actually played this a couple times tonight. The first time we got decimated because we all stayed together, and when you employ or deploy encounter cards on your turn, it hoses everybody on your square.
It hits somebody that's on a tile. When you're one big group, everybody takes it.
So a strategy that we kind of came.
It makes sense.
There's the plus and minus to we decided to split up because when we all stuck together, we lost very quickly because those encounters would come up and say everyone on this tile takes damage. Well, if we were all together, we were all getting hit constantly. If you have a character with low hit points, you're going to go down real fast. In fact, Andrew went down before we got around the table one whole time.
Yeah, it was really bad.
It was rough. The second time we split up.
That was Ian's fault, though.
I only had 6 hit points too, versus everybody else had almost double that.
Well, this is true, but when we split up, we found that was less of an issue. Mm-hmm. So I would say that is a good strategy as long as you're with someone else. I would not go off individually alone. Here's the thing. You'll get picked off.
It was less of an issue when we weren't with Ian because Pat was having issues.
I was with Ian at the end. I did all right. I killed a lot of monsters.
You died once though.
Well, because I was alone basically.
You have these things called surges that allow you to resurrect your characters, and you only get so many during the game. And Ian and Brian used all of our surges up on that last game.
That's impressive.
Goes through that. Another strategy I like that something we didn't talk about is each time you kill a monster, you get experience points for that monster, and you can use those experience points in 2 ways. One, if you draw an encounter and you don't like it, if you have enough to spend 5 experience points, you can block that encounter.
That's good when you got, like with Brian and Ian, they kept drawing these volcanic vent cards where they'd automatically take damage. And both of them were close to dead a couple times, so we ended up spending those for that specific purpose.
Which is kind of nice, but you do have to choose how you spend those points, which is the strategy.
And the other way that you can spend these is your character starts out at level 1. If you roll a natural 20 and your team has enough experience points to spend, you can make your character go up to 2nd level, which gives him more power, allows him to have more hit points, and a lot of other good bonuses. Other things... kill the monsters off as fast as you can, because if you keep exploring without killing the monsters off, you can get overrun.
Yeah,
I mean, you can build up a lot of monsters.
I didn't really feel we ever got kind of behind the 8 ball as far as that goes. We took care of them pretty well, and maybe you said it's just because we stayed on top of them. But any other strategy anybody's found effective, whether it's group wise or individual wise?
Just use your character's powers wisely. Know them ahead of time, so you don't look down like, oh, I've been forgetting to do this or whatever.
And every character I think comes with a couple one-time use things. Don't, of course, waste those early in the game. I think we reserved ours all for the boss.
But here is a little tip. I was too conservative on some of the treasure or the cards that you flip over. It gives you a bonus, and then it says also flip one of your cards that you've used, flip it back over so you can use it again.
Oh.
Well, I had never used any of my special powers, so I could have actually been using some of them multiple times that last game.
But see, I'd never run.
I was trying to
cards,
save them,
so...
and then those cards kept coming up on my turn, and I was like, oh man, I mean, I could have used those powers a bunch. So don't hold on to them too long either, because you can actually get a chance to flip them over.
But that is also just luck of the draw. Like,
yeah,
I've
true.
never gotten anything.
True, but we went the whole game, and I hadn't used them, and we probably could have beat the game faster.
Especially when you're with you.
Yeah, well. Should we get to likes and dislikes?
Sure.
Components, thumbs up. I love them.
Yeah, the whether it's the miniatures, the interlocking pieces, everything, the layout, like you said, of the cards.
I like that it's
really good.
A different dungeon every time because you're drawing at random, so you'll never see the same map twice.
Interlocking pieces. We always have to say that, right? You got to be there.
It's not Manhattan Project.
It has all the pieces that you need from it. It's not like other games we've had where it doesn't come with enough die. I mean, you can always add more 20-siders if you want, but you don't need to. I mean, it comes with basically everything you need. Another thing I like that is what do you guys think? Solid gameplay. The rules work. Mm-hmm. It's very simple.
Yeah, we did go back to the rule book. Besides, just kind of clarifying some general behind the scenes rules because no real questions came up.
No.
It plays pretty quickly, and I think it's not one of those, like we've talked about before, where you sit back after your turn and you don't do anything, because just because Pat drew the monster doesn't mean it's not going to affect me. Like you said, they have an artificial intelligence that they may go and attack me because I'm closer to him than Pat actually is. So you really do kind of need to stay involved and keep track of what's going on, because you're not only going to be acting just on your turn.
And it encourages cooperative team play and communication too. Even when it's my turn, I might be here, and Andrew might say, "Well, I'm going to move my guy over here," and I might say, "No, wait a minute. I have this treasure. Before you put yourself in harm's way, if you can wait it out." I mean, it really allowed you to
There's
communicate.
that, and the use of the experience points too. I mean, you have a common pool that everybody draws from. You really have to work together as far as, okay, are we going to spend it to block this encounter, or are we going to need it later on to do something else? So it does really encourage that cooperative play really well, and like I said, it just keeps you involved.
What do you think, Andrew? Anything else that?
No, it works.
The other thing I was just thinking about is that it's not one of those that you're also set up to fail. I mean, it's just a fun get together and play. I mean, it's just one that encourages just a fun time sitting
Even
back.
if I'd lost, I mean, we did lose
the first game very quickly.
But even in the second game, if we had lost at the end, I wouldn't feel like it was a loss. I mean, like I'd lost out on the whole game and I'd wasted my time. Because there's some games like that where you just feel like I just wasted 2 hours.
Quick question: were you with us the first night we brought this out, and we actually beat it on our first playthrough on a different scenario? But okay, so we're what, 2-1.
No,
so I kind of like
because we played it 2 nights. We've played it about
Probably
4
times in, yeah.
4 or 5 times.
But I would say you do win a little more than you lose. I mean, it is challenging and difficult, but because the surge tokens are there to kind of save you and stuff, you don't feel like it's hopeless, and you don't feel like you're always getting beat.
It's probably a good beginner dungeon crawl game.
Yeah.
It is.
The one thing I have to say about as a comment on the other Dungeons and Dragons in this series, Drizzt has been designed. The characters in the Legend of Drizzt edition are very powerful. The heroes are very powerful. In the
Castle Ravenloft
edition, the heroes were a lot weaker, and there was a little bit more imbalance there. So each game has a different flavor and a different feel to it. So understand that the characters aren't always going to be the same in each of these editions.
With that, why don't we jump to our reviews? We do 1 to 10 scale, 10 being great, 1 being a terrible game, don't buy it. Andrew.
26. Adam.
Is that good or bad?
I'm just spouting my age.
It's a lie. Anyways.
Cougar years.
Yeah.
Cougar years.
Actually, the crazy thing is, I would give it an 8 because I like the gameplay. At first, I was like, I'm not gonna like this game. I just didn't feel like I was gonna like it.
Is it the Dungeons and Dragons name too?
No, the Dungeons and Dragons doesn't bother me so much, but like the first go round, you die really quick or you get attacked really quick.
When you die in that first round, it really turns you off.
I know, I was just like, oh great, this is gonna be like an impossible game. I just kind of figured that it was going to be like that, and then a couple more playthroughs, and it really just drew me in. Along with all the components, it wasn't overly busy or overly complicated. The rules just worked. It's a solid 8 for me.
I'm gonna agree with Andrew. I'd give it an 8. We talked about the components. I think they're really good. Great miniatures, interlocking pieces, all that stuff. I like that it encourages the cooperative play really well. One thing I actually like about it is that each character feels like it plays a role really well. Like, I was Wolfgar. I was the one that was going to run in and do the
tank, basically,
hand combat. Andrew was the archer who sat back. He had very little health, but he could sit 2 tiles away and just kind of pick off at the enemies.
Ian was the self-mutilator who missed everything and just was, I think, hacking
himself
apart.
I never saw that in Drizzt in the books.
I've never seen that in the books. I don't remember that.
I think each character actually plays a role really well, and if you have players that work together well and they go along with that role, it makes the whole system and the gameplay even better. I don't think there's anything I'm usually a stickler for rules, making sure the rules are nice and clear. They're very clear in this game. It's a game that I think you can really kind of get somebody who's just getting into board games. You got to pass some of the gateway games. This might be another game to push them a little further into the hobby. I just liked it a lot.
I'm going to give it, wow, this is scary because I was 27, but looking over everything, I think I'm going to stick with the 8 theme that we have going on here. The reason for it, I love the miniatures. I mean, very high quality, very easy to tell what they are. I mean, they have see-through, translucent devices, characters for the water and the spirits. I mean, they put a lot of thought into it. The pieces are great. There's a lot of scenarios. They also make other scenarios. There's a lot of player-based scenarios that are really well balanced. If you know the storyline of Drizzt, all the main characters are there. Even their enemies and their rivals are in the game in different scenarios. Great components on the map work. They've held up, and my kids play this. And my kids play this a lot, and you can't really tell. I mean, the components have held up to teens and preteen players, and they aren't butchered like you see a lot of other games that go through that. So yeah, I can't find a lot of fault with it, so I'm going to give it a strong 8.
Oh,
I see a 5 coming here.
No, I'm probably at about a 7. I like it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think because the 7 is so bad. It would be
if you hadn't been with Ian. Would it have been better?
that might be a factor. If you add in either Wrath of Ashardalon or Castle Ravenloft, the other games, I could see the score going up because you have more tiles, more heroes to choose from. But then it's a huge money investment because they're not cheap games either. So it's kind of which is worth it or not. The other thing is I could see the Dungeons and Dragons name turning people off. One of we posted that, hey, tonight we're playing Dungeons and Dragons on our Facebook page, and one of us got a text from our wife saying, "Oh, Dungeons and Dragons, you've truly entered nerd territory now." So I can see some people, it has that I don't know, that stigma about it that Dungeons and Dragons, that's really hardcore and dorky, and it's not. It is a fun game.
Wait, this is Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah.
My score
just went way down. So it could scare off some newer players or people who aren't familiar with it. Once you get them playing, I think they'd actually enjoy it. But I could see that possibly being a factor. It is a 7, though, because I grew up reading R.A. Salvatore's books. I think I've read the vast majority of his books that involve the character Drizzt and everything. So I knew the characters and the backstory to it, which actually kind of opens it up. Fans of the series will be happy to see that they've really kind of carried the flavor and the theme into the game pretty well there. But no, it is a good game. It's a 7. Combine more of them, and yeah, it could easily become an 8 pretty quick. I think it's just going to be expensive.
I just have one question for you, Brian.
Yes.
Dungeons and Dragons makes things nerdy, but just board games in general doesn't.
No, I'm saying there's like rungs of nerdiness, and we're already at quite nerdy at this point.
So
D&D is
just
like
by adding the name, it was just like boom.
For some people, though, do you not think it would?
No,
I think it would.
Like you say board games, people are like, you say Dungeons and Dragons, people are like, oh.
And they picture LARPing in the full costume and speaking in like voices and tongues.
Well, we didn't do that. Oh man,
when you say board games, you got the average person to go, they're going to go play Monopoly. That's pretty acceptable.
And then when you say Dungeons and Dragons, then all of a sudden they stop talking to you. They change their numbers.
All right.
You've been blocked on Facebook.
Well, that's our review of the Dungeons & Dragons Legend of Drizzt board game. Check us out next week for our next review.